Happy New Year and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and this episode is sponsored by 12th Street Sound. I just popped in there to say hi to Anthony Senarini. He's the owner and engineer. I've recorded all my music with him since 2019, and you should record yours with him too in 2023. Go to 12thstreet.ca/RCP to learn more about what Anthony's cooked up for you, the listener of this show. You can get a great deal if you contact Anthony at 12thst.ca/RCP. Happy music making in 2023.
I want to do things that feel unfamiliar. I want to do things that musically are reaching for something that is not comfortable, that leads us to things that we didn't even know that we were capable of doing.
All right, we're very excited to be back on the RCP here in a brand new year. Just wanted to let you know that my first gig of the year is at Tyrant Studios on Friday, January 27th, 2023, with my trio, Francis Henson on guitar, me on electric bass, Carson Tuoro on drums. Tickets are available right now, even though it's coming up real soon. Find the link in the description, and I would love to see you there. Our first all-new guest of the year up next. Our guest today is a piano player who's been based in Vancouver over the last handful of years, but he's also spent time in Toronto, and he's currently based in New York. I'm catching him here while he's home for the holidays and cramming quite a lot of gigs into just a couple weeks. And not only that, but he recorded an upcoming album for Cellar Music called Night and Day. That's the provisional title that we're revealing for the first time ever here, even though if the title ends up changing, don't hold it against us, but that's what he and Corey Weeds are planning on calling the album right now. He recorded it with Jody Prosnick on bass and Nick Bracewell on drums. Please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Noah Franche-Nolan.
Hey, thank you for having me, Will.
Thanks for being here.
Awesome.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. This is day 2 of chilling a little bit.
Yeah, because you recorded, where are we now? We're on Tuesday. So you recorded this past weekend. This is January 10th. We're recording about 2 weeks before release. So you recorded on like the 7th and the 8th?
Yeah. 6th and 7th, I believe.
7th. Okay, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and I have a really hard time remembering things that happen in the day. So I feel like I had something on Sunday. Oh yeah, I had a service that I played at Brentwood and then did some teaching. So yeah. So I'm today is a nice relaxed day, and then there's a few more performances. But yeah.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you making time to come out to New West and chat with me. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I want to start off with Ben Frost because I think this is the first time I've ever had this happen where this guest played on the previous guest's album, Pixies by Ben Frost Quartet. You played with Ben, with Eli and Millie.
Yeah.
And we talked about that project. And you said you listened to it too. But
yeah.
I got a lot of Ben's thoughts around his project. But what was your feeling of that whole project and participating? How did it go for you?
Yeah. Well, it went really well. I've listened to the record and I really enjoy listening to it.
Yeah.
It was, so I guess there's two main things. Firstly, Ben as an artist and a composer and a trumpeter. I've always truly admired Ben as a musician. I find him to be incredibly lyrical and he finds very unique musical ideas to explore in his compositions and his playing. There's this really interesting balance between things that can feel angular and things that can feel very lyrical and that are informed by more contemporary musical practices and more, traditional musical practices. So I find it incredibly inspiring to just play his music. And his tunes are these gems. As a pianist, there's something really special to try to dig into his music, specifically regarding how to properly voice behind the melody. You know, like I spent some time just really digging into the tunes, trying to figure out, okay, what's the best voicing to play behind this part of the melody, and you know, trying to just work around these intricate movements that occur and beautiful melodicism. So there was that aspect that was awesome, and then working with Millie and Eli was incredible because I had never played with them.
Oh yeah.
And they are such a tight rhythm section, right? They play so well together, and they're so together. And then I just had a blast playing with their time feel. You know, Millie is incredibly driving. She just drives the music in such an incredible and exciting way. And Eli plays these beautiful counter lines, you know. So it was just, it was incredibly enjoyable. And then Dave Sekula, who's an incredible, you know, sound engineer and guitarist and, you know, does so many things. He's just great to work with. So he created a great vibe at Monarch. So that I'd say that was my experience with that.
Yeah, well, it turned out phenomenally. He captured a group of people and a time in his life too, and it was really cool to hear him talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. And you were roommates, right?
Yes, we were. That was awesome. I'm very grateful for the time that we were roommates. It was a good time. Yeah.
We're gonna jump around all over the place, but one thing that covers everything is that you just are in so many groups with so many excellent people, and you get all these very stimulating, very productive opportunities to work with these people. And I've seen you in a whole bunch of configurations. We'll talk about some of those groups, but since you just kind of broke down playing with that rhythm section of Eli and Millie and recording with Dave, there's other wonderful musicians who we can talk about too. And those are the people that you just recorded night and day with, right?
Yeah.
You recorded with Jody and Nick, and of course you've been playing with them. You are the band Ragaverse with Shruti Ramani, right? So you have that experience playing with that rhythm section. So you so eloquently described what it felt like to play with Eli and Millie. I'm wondering if you can jump right from there into some feelings about what it's been like to play with Jody and Nick over the last year plus.
Yeah. Well, the first
I know it's not easy.
No, well it is, because they're so awesome.
Yeah.
So okay, I should start off by just saying that, you know, Ragaverse, which is really the focal point that brought us all together.
Yeah.
It brought us together, right? Emotionally, musically, you know, we sort of feel like a like we talk about how, you know, we feel like a family. They feel like my family, you know, my musical family and my extended family. You know, obviously I have my, you know, direct family, so Ragaverse brought us all together, and we can like talk about that. But you asked about Jody and Nick. So the first thing is that Jody and Nick are like two peas in a pot. That's what I always tell myself and tell others. Like they are so hilarious together, just as individuals. They just are awesome. They're such a great vibe, and I'm sure you can relate to this. Like, a happy rhythm section makes a happy band, you know.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's inevitable that they will be happy together.
And you too, right?
Yes, that's it. I love being around them. So you know, one thing that I've thought about a lot is just how like the relationship is core. You know, that's the most important thing, is feeling connected to the people that you're playing music with from a personal level, because that allows vulnerability, and we can only, you know, reach to new musical places if we're being vulnerable and taking chances with one another. And in order to do that, we need to feel comfortable and trust one another. So I have the utmost trust in Jody and Nick. They are, you know, such incredible musicians who are well versed in the technical aspects of playing their instruments, the history, of the music that we're dealing with, Black American music, and improvise various types of improvised styles, um, and um, and they are willing to take chances, and and they really complement one another in a way that um, Nick loves to. Nick is very spontaneous in a great way. He will throw things at us, not literally.
He won't pick stuff up and throw it at you while you're sitting at the piano.
I like to say that. Well, actually, one thing that I always think about is how playing music is like being a kid and throwing stuff in a sort of like a sandbox. That's how I like to
Stuff
feel
is
it.
being thrown around you. Is that?
No,
Is that the
we're
idea?
all throwing
You're
stuff
all,
at.
okay,
I
you're
like
all
to
in there
throw
together.
stuff.
Yeah.
I
I know you do. Yeah.
I love to throw spontaneous stuff, and so does Nick, and so does Jody. Jody, as well, has such a grounding time feel.
Oh yeah.
If anything goes off kilter, because it's inevitable that that happens when people are taking risks and taking chances in the music, which I really want in my bands, or in my musical making contexts. When that happens, yeah, there's gonna be moments where things get thrown off, and then it's about finding it back together, as an ensemble. And Jody certainly knows how to ground the music, and also just, I mean, Jody has such a I spoke about Ben's lyrical capabilities, and I believe that Jody as well. She'll always find the most beautiful melody to play on changes, no matter how complex they may be. And yeah, finally, I'll say that I'm aware that the music that we recorded and that we played requires concentration, requires practice, and I trusted them to do that, and they did, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Yeah, it's just incredibly positive, and in the end, the music feels light. There's this lightness to playing with Jody and Nick. I know Jody's mentioned like nimbleness.
Oh, that's a good word.
Yeah, and so, yeah, there's this nimble lightness to the way we play together, and we can go, we can play hard, we can really bring it, but there's always this lightness that feels great, and it leads to never feeling tired after playing. I felt like an hour had passed by when we did the 2 recording session days. And
like the whole thing just flew by.
Yeah, everything was just so easy, and felt so good, and made me feel so happy. It's just a blast. It's like hanging out with friends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, it is hanging out with friends.
It is, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And they're throwing stuff at
you.
So you shouted out, while we're there, you shouted out Dave too for
Yes.
When you recorded Pixies with Ben. So
Mm-hmm.
what's it like working with Sheldon, the engineer there?
Yeah.
Because he's doing so much stuff with Cellar. I haven't really talked to him much yet or met him, but his name keeps appearing on all the Cellar music recordings. So what's it like working with him?
Sheldon is, he's incredible. We're lucky to have very incredible sound engineers in Vancouver. I mean, I don't know, many of them. I've only encountered some, but Dave is incredible. Sheldon is equally incredible. And he is just a blast to work with because I think he's very focused. He's got great ears. He's very efficient, and he's a joy to be around. So yeah, it's great. He's going to be sending me the takes today, and so I'll get to do my edits and send them to him, and we work very quickly and together, and I just really loved working with him. I mean, I only worked with him for 2 days, and I'll be working with him remotely for the next little while, doing edits and mixing and mastering together. So, but I'm incredibly looking forward to that time. Yeah.
So that's how this works for those who haven't done it, who haven't like started producing an album with Cellar or whatever. Basically, the label, they want the final masters, right? So even if you're going to put out an album on Cellar, you're going to work with the mixing engineer and the mastering engineer on getting that stuff done. It's not like they're doing that all for you, no. And you wouldn't want them to do it all for you because you want to be involved. It's part of your vision, right?
Yeah. There's a sound. There are various sounds that have come up in the history of piano trio recordings, and there are sounds that I am hoping to achieve. So I'm hoping to work some stuff out with Sheldon. Whatever it is, get the little bit of reverb in there, and I don't know. We'll figure it out. But he knows that stuff much more than I do.
Yeah, you know what you want, and he knows how to implement it, and that's what you need. Then you're rolling.
Yeah.
You were gracious enough to let me privately hear 2 tracks.
Yeah.
Based on what I remember from listening to them this morning. One of them was very light in the sense that you said, and one of them was more hard-hitting and much more kind of post-boppy and a little bit more intense. The light one was like in G, I think.
Yeah.
And then the hard-hitting one was in like B-flat or E-flat minor. So it had like a lot of B-flat pedaling, and it was really heavy.
Yeah.
What are those 2 tunes?
Yeah, so you heard Family Tree, which is the light one.
Yeah.
And then you heard Lighthouse, which is the heavy one.
Which I think I've heard you play live.
Yes. Yeah, you have.
But I don't think I heard you play the other one live.
No, that is a new one that I wrote for this record.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, the music that I wrote for this record, there are, well, I should say, first of all, the record consists of originals and two arrangements of standards.
Hence the Night and Day, right?
That's
the title,
it.
Yeah.
Night and Day, and there's kind of I do this sort of hidden away version of Darn That Dream. At first it's not recognizable, but then slowly you start to see that it's Darn That Dream.
It's because it's all improvising at the beginning of the arrangement or something?
Yeah, I masked the melody. I sort of caught on this relationship of fourths that occurs in the melody, and I messed around with it and reharmonized it, and so I sort of masked it that way. And then once we get into the bridge, it's clear that we're dealing with the bridge of Darn That Dream. And the last day I sort of weaved the original melody or segments of it with this new sort of little thing that I did. So, but so the music that I wrote recently for this record, I tried to write music that was melodic, so that still had maybe some complexity to it, because I like to explore rhythmic or harmonic or even melodic complexities in my music, but still felt simple and melodic and approachable, So Family Tree is that. It's a song that is really grounded in the melody, and yet it goes many places, as you heard. And then Lighthouse, that is one that I wrote a while back. and that one's actually now dedicated to Jody. You know, Jody and I have spoken about the idea of like how young musicians need a lighthouse. You know, like somebody to help guide them through the storm.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, that's a good. Yeah, okay,
You know?
I gotcha.
And Jody is one of those people. You know, I kind of gave a big dedication at the Frankie's show preceding the recording dates. And but yeah, so that song is dedicated to her. So she opens it up actually with a bass solo, which isn't in what you saw because we tracked it separately just for ease of album editing. So it's a big bass solo that is epic and sounds amazing.
Nice.
And then it goes into that, and then there's a drum solo, but it's heavy hitting, you know, and we play it fast because it has a sense of urgency.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the way that like McCoy Tyner does.
Yeah. 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 And I'd say the urgency is just reflective of the feeling of wanting to express to, you know, to other musicians, like, don't give up. You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
And if you can do it, try to do it because it's incredibly fulfilling, but it's not easy. So don't give up, you know?
Yeah.
And you got this. And so that's where the urgency comes from. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to hear your most recent show at Frankie's, which was on Thursday, January 5th, if I recall, before the night before you went to go record.
Yeah.
But I heard you play at Frankie's last year. And one of the things I remember from that set is that you pretty much you dedicated every tune to somebody.
Yeah.
Every single tune that you played, you made a point of saying who it was for or who the emotion of the material was for, which I thought was really great, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I more and more I find that that's just how I write. Like the music that I write is informed by my relationships. And so and I'm also not the best at coming up with song titles.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to just say, well, this is for this person, but I mean, it's not a cop out. It's truly because I do feel like my music is a reflection of my relationships.
I totally dig that. I've always felt that way. I identify with that in what I see you do. Yeah. Going back to Jody's role sort of, and the strength of the collaboration that you've been having. What can you bring out here and relay? What story have you got about what was the very first time that you collaborated with Jody, or where did that actually begin?
Okay, so, well, the first time that I interacted with Jody was as a TA when I was, 19, for the VSO Summer Jazz Camp. And that had a huge impact on me because I saw what true leadership, community building in a musical community looks like through how she organized the whole thing. So, and I remember, you know, I carried that with me ever since, to the point that I remember, you know, during the during the pandemic lockdowns, I would think about, you know, the things that were valuable to me. I was teaching, so during the lockdowns, I was just teaching online like all day, you know, because we were all just trying to find work, you know, trying to get by, and so I was thinking a lot about teaching, because that's literally all I did was teach and write during those lockdowns, and go for short walks. And so I thought about Jody, and I thought, if there's somebody that I would like to work with at just like within a pedagogical context, within like a musical education context, if there's somebody I believe in who could properly lead a musical community in like a school context, it's her. So the way she carries herself, the way she carried herself and organized and led a community when I was 19 years old at that workshop stuck with me and has stuck with me forever. So that was my first experience with Jody. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're maybe like a year younger than me. So this was like 5-ish years ago, or maybe a little bit more probably, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a decent amount of time that you've been. Yeah. And I know that you also you contributed to the Ostara Project album in a certain way, right? Like on one track, right?
Yeah. I co-arranged with Jody. Jody had written the tune, and then she wrote the meat of the arrangement, and I went in and I sort of fleshed it out essentially. And throughout the entire process, I would, relay back to her and ask her, is this what you're feeling? And she would say yes or no, and we'd go back and forth. So that was my role in the tune Storms and Oceans. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for your album that you're going to drop this year, is this the first time that you've been so involved in the production and the release of an album? Like not just your own, but maybe you've played on other people's recordings here and there, but is this the first time you've really experienced the whole process?
Yeah, I'd say so. I've played on a few records now. One record that actually isn't released yet, but I did a bunch of arranging for as well for somebody in Toronto. I had one record. It was super DIY with Harrison Argatoff. Have you come across him?
Yeah, Ben and I talked about him.
Yes.
I hope to meet him, but I'm pretty sure we've never actually met.
Okay, so he's awesome. When we were in school together, we found out that there were students in the Masters in Recording Arts program at U of T who needed work experience hours to graduate.
And that's where you were. You were in the Masters Jazz at U of T.
Not Masters. We were in the bachelor's program.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But there were master's students in the recording arts program who needed to record students, and it was free. You could record with them for free. So you'd go into this little studio in this one building, and it was all free. It was awesome. So we would go in there at like 11 p.m. or something and record until 2 a.m. and we did that like every Friday or something for a week. Yeah, and we made this record called Dreaming Here's the Still, which is a duo record, just Harrison and I of our original compositions. But that came out in 2018.
Oh wow,
I think.
I've listened to that, but I haven't listened to it since. I got to go back and check that out again. But I remember listening to that. But so this is a difference between you and Ben. Obviously, Ben did CAP, and him and I started at the same time there, and we met there.
Yeah,
he graduated from CAP, but you did your undergrad at U of T.
Yeah,
Ben came to do masters.
Yeah,
there.
And I met him when he was doing that, and I started playing with him. I started playing in his band. And it was awesome. I loved it from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the record with Harrison, we mixed together. We did that stuff together. But this is my first record that I'm truly, I guess, leading. Although, of course, it's thanks to also all of the contributions of Jody and Nick and Sheldon and Corey, who run Cellar Live. So, and also I should say, Nora and Will, the homeowners of that house that we recorded in, they were so generous, and it's such a warm space to be in. And then their piano is stunning, like truly beautiful. It was immaculate. Yeah, I
awesome.
Truly loved that piano. Yeah.
No, shout out to them too for sure. Yeah, that's a big role.
Yeah.
Now I got to go back and listen to that Harrison Argatoff record. That's funny. So you decided to go out there as maybe a 19-year-old or so
Yeah.
to go do that undergrad program, right?
Yeah.
After growing up here.
Yeah.
I think I first heard you play. Did you ever used to go to the Pats Jam when you were really
Yes.
young? I think
Yeah.
that's the first time I ever heard you play. Like
Yeah.
probably coming up on 9 or 10 years ago
Yeah.
now, you would have showed up there and played a little bit. But then after that, you went to U of T, right?
Yes. I wanted to study with David Braid, and and so I got to study with him for 3 years. Yeah. And I learned so much through him. Um, there's a lot of me that comes from what I learned through him, for sure. And then I got to study with Dave Restivo, who now lives, a bit, it takes a little while to get to where he is
In
from
Nelson,
Vancouver, but
Selkirk,
Nelson. So, but he's now here in BC, so that's awesome. And then Jim Vivian, I got to study with Jim Vivian, which was awesome. Totally.
I reviewed Dave's Juno-nominated album, Arancina, and Jim Vivian played on that record.
Nice.
So I didn't get to meet them, but I enjoyed that. That's another good piano trio record. He's got a featured vocalist. His partner on some of the tracks. But yeah,
that's a great record.
Yeah, that is a good record. So how did it come to happen on Cellar? How did this happen this way and not go in the Pixies route where Ben puts it out on his own? How did you get ramped onto this part of the process? Now this is the first time that you're really in the driver's seat on a full production thing.
Really it was that I played a gig at Frankie's, and I knew that I needed to put something out. I mean, it's not out yet, so I guess I still need to. But it will be out,
Don't jinx it, yeah.
Yeah, don't jinx it. But I needed to put something out to share who I am as an artist, and I felt like it was the right time. And I knew that putting it out on Cellar Live would be a great opportunity. And so I played a gig at Frankie's, which I believe Corey was playing on actually as well. And so I approached him after the gig, and I asked him if he would consider having that record on Cellar, and he agreed to that, and that's how it went. And I'm incredibly grateful for that.
And it was still just an idea at that point.
Yes.
As opposed to it being fully recorded and stuff.
Yes, It was like, could we do this? And he was very kind to say yes.
So that's really interesting, because I work for an American small jazz label, and a lot of people who work at labels, the way that they get submissions and the way they do stuff is people send finished recordings. Right? Like, and a lot of things are finished. It's obviously not everything is finished, because you haven't set a release date in stone yet if you're still looking for a label to release it with. But a lot of the time when people talk about, I'm going to shop my project around to labels, it's like you have the masters done and you have the artwork done.
Yeah.
And so if you're going out there and you're going to submit to different labels who could be anywhere, really, like depending on whatever you think fits with your music, that's what you have to do. But this is the magic of doing it within your own city and your own community, is that you don't have to do it that way, that formal way or that online way that you'd have to do it if you're submitting to all these different places. If you know the right person, you know each other, you can start from the idea and you can approach, and they actually want you to, because then they feel like they're part of the journey a little bit more than if you just showed up and you had already recorded everything. And like, that's great too. Like, that's how it's usually done out there, but it may be, it's even more special if, when you do it with somebody in your own community, you start with them from the idea phase, right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, it's Corey said it himself, like, it's a collaboration, we're working on this together, and the music that I crafted for this record is considerate of the label and the musical landscape that label sort of has crafted for itself. My music is still, a slight deviation from that, but I was very much aware of that and tried to to do something that fit within that and felt really nice within that label's musical context. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's great because you know that he's bought in. Like at this point, you know that even though you didn't try and like just copy their formula or their genre or whatever, you know that because he's been in since the beginning, that when you go and promote it, like he's already kind of implied to you that, oh, I believe I can promote this with you. And like it's not too far out of my wheelhouse. Like I'll still be able to do the promotion for it and it'll still make sense and we'll get good results for you because you fit it enough, right? Like it's not too far away that he wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Working with him is great. It's been he's awesome to work with for that. Yeah.
Nice. We'll get back to the conversation with Noah in a second, but first, we are on a drive to welcome 50 new subscribers to the Update subscription at rhythmchanges.ca as we get into 2023. You should be one of them. Join us, get the exclusive column that I write on Fridays to the subscribers, and take a discount while you're at it. As a loyal listener of this show, go to rhythmchanges.ca/update to get a discount. Join us in our subscriber drive early this year. Thanks again. Go to rhythmchanges.ca/update. Link in the description. Let's get back to the conversation with Noah. Thanks. There's another group that you do that you have been doing that we haven't talked about yet. And we've talked about two amazing rhythm sections, right? We've talked about, I think you know where I'm going with this. We talked about Millie and Eli where you got to play with them once for Ben Frost Pixies. We talked about Jody and Nick, who are huge, important parts of your musical life here. But now I want to talk about David Caballero and Arvind Ramdas. So I've heard you play several times. The 10 Penny Trio is what you've called the group. Ardashir has often played with you.
Yes.
I met you guys as a unit as you started to play around more, and I didn't get to see a lot into the background because they were coming up at CAP in the last handful of years, right? And so tell me about this. What's the story of this group? Where did that come from? And this is now the third amazing rhythm section that you get to play with on a regular basis.
Yeah. So it all started when I first moved back to Vancouver. I was hired to be the musical director for a tap dance show through the Vancouver Tap Society. So I needed to find a band, and I had just moved back to town, so I didn't know everybody. I was talking to Conrad Good, who referred me to Arvind. And so I hired Arvind to play on that gig, and we got along really well. I first of all, I loved playing with him, and secondly, we just loved hanging out with one another. I remember before the first performance of that set of shows, Arvind and I were hanging out in the back of the hall. It was at the one of the smaller venues at the VSO, and we were in the back, and Arvind was showing me different stick techniques to do with the drums and whatnot, and that was super fun.
Nice.
So that's how I met Arvind, and from there we just developed a friendship and a musical relationship. And he said, I know this great bass player named David Caballero, and we should play together because we have similar musical interests. And so we got together, and we started playing some Herbie Nichols compositions together because we all of us really love his music. And from there we started to share original compositions, and I love playing with those two due to the willingness to take risks,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm all about. I want to do things that feel unfamiliar. I want to do things that, musically are reaching for something that is not comfortable, that isn't easy, that leads us to things that we didn't even know that we were capable of doing. sort of communal music building, doing things together, building something together. So that certainly happens with Arvind and David. When we play together, it's exciting. Arvind and David are not only great, musicians on their own instruments, but also incredible composers. Arvind composes beautiful music, like truly stunning music, and his approach towards melodicism has informed mine very much so. And David, when he brings in a tune, it's very cool, it's very intricate, and it's got this kind of, I'll use the word hipness. It's got this like hipness to it. So it's just incredibly fulfilling to play with them. And I always feel like we've gone somewhere when we play together. We've explored some strange musical world, which is what I absolutely love. So,
Yeah, I think you played the loudest show that's ever been played at Second Floor Gastown. I was at that one. Artistry was there.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
Quartet at Second Floor, so that's already unusual. But you were just going hard at that show, and that was, I don't think it was your first show, but it was one of your earlier ones, and you did more since then. Like you did more at Frankie's after that. And what was your actual first show with that group?
Our first gig, I can't remember whether it was Second Floor back when Dave was running Second Floor, or if it was a Frankie's show. I believe it was No, I think it was Second Floor. Yeah, I think our first gig together was at Second Floor.
Yeah. What about Tyrant? I know you played there too as well. Maybe after that. Yeah.
As the Tenpenny Trio, we played a gig at Tyrant. That was super fun. We took a crack at this suite of music that I wrote called the Great Flame Suite, which has some pretty experimental sections to it. And then we did a lot of Arvind's original compositions, and Dan, who runs Tyrant, is awesome and was super on board for our musical decisions about that concert, and that was very much appreciated. And I mean, Tyrant is great.
Oh yeah.
It's the vibe is so great.
They don't make spaces like that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played with Dan a couple times in his group, so I appreciate his whole deal. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
it's good to have him. Have you recorded at all? Maybe demos and stuff I know you've done, but like with the Tenpenny Trio?
Yes, we were trying to set something up while I was here, actually. Just like a DIY recording session with Artishir as our sound engineer.
Nice.
But dates didn't line up. However, we're aiming to record something this summer. But yeah, there's a sort of bombastic grittiness to that band, so it's only appropriate that our first record would have this kind of basement tapes vibe, So we might even record it in what we call the Tenpenny headquarters, which you're probably familiar with. It's just Arvind's place. He's got a great setup, a beautiful piano, great drums, and so that's definitely in the works. Recording something with Tenpenny is certainly in the works. Yeah.
Nice. And that would be a different, like you wouldn't be taking that to Corey, I don't think.
No. And that would be, this trio that I just recorded, that's my trio. The Tenpenny Trio, that's us as a collective.
Yeah, totally.
It's a separate
It comes
thing.
across.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, because like Arvind, I know he has a big role in it. And Arvind and David talk about two peas in a pod with the other people. It's like all three of these rhythm sections are so their own thing and so combined. So they will have their own input into that as well.
Yeah.
There's one tune that I've heard at every gig, I think, by the Tenpenny Trio. I think it's your tune. It's like this almost blues in C minor or something that has this kind of power chord riffing and stuff. And is this a tune that you wrote a while ago, or is this like a Tenpenny Trio tune? What is that tune?
No, yeah, that's a tune that I wrote quite a long time ago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it was simply reflective of some things that were going on in the musical community in Toronto when I was there.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's a good song that I like to play. Yeah, because it always brings
What's it called?
It's called With Raised Voices.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it brings a lot out of every musician. And it's easy to memorize. So
Yeah. It is a blues, right?
It
It's
is,
12-bar
yeah.
blues. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a minor blues. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we don't have to get into any particular Toronto stuff, but when you finished your bachelor's in Toronto, you knew you wanted to come back here.
Yeah, so well, actually, no, I didn't. When I graduated from U of T, I was lucky enough to have some cool work set up. So as soon as I graduated, I went on tour with Harry Vetro, who's a drum. Yeah.
He played on it was our last review of 2022, Harry Bartlett Trio,
Yes.
Wildwood.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Harry, so I played in Northern Ranger, which is Harry's group. And so we went on tour. We did it was one of the greatest times of my life. We toured across Eastern Canada. And after that, I had a grant to go study with John Hollenbeck in Montreal, and I stayed with my grandmother.
Nice.
And from there, I went to Calgary, and I worked as the musical director and composer for a tap dance production.
Wow.
So I was staying with some family friends, and I would transit into downtown Calgary every morning and go into DJD, Decidedly Jazz Dance, into the studio and build music for this show.
Wow.
So I was writing the music with Danny Nielsen, the tap dancer, the choreographer, and so I would write the music and then go over to the beautiful Calgary Public Library. I don't know the official name, but like the Central Public Library that I absolutely love. And I would make these charts and then come back in and then make some edits the next day. And it was an incredibly fulfilling and fulfilling and insightful experience. I learned a lot.
Wow.
I learned a lot about how to be a collaborator and how to work with dance. I've done a lot of work with dance now. So,
and you said you started doing that in Vancouver as well a while ago. You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. So then from Calgary, I went on tour with Harry again. We toured Europe. We were in various towns in Europe. Then and then by then it's Christmas time.
What year is this?
This is 2019.
2019. Oh, okay. Yeah. So just before.
That's it. So then I come back to Toronto. I find a job as a ballet accompanist.
Keeping with the dance thing.
That's it. Yeah. And I start teaching, and then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And so I had every intention to stay in Toronto. And then, naturally, the amount of personal reflection that occurred over the pandemic led me to decide to move to Vancouver, which I am incredibly I'm happy with that decision.
To move back.
To move
come
back
here,
to Vancouver. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I left a year later. But yeah. I it was exactly the thing that I needed to do. And things turned out really well. I came out here and started working at the VSO, teaching at the VSO, and working as a ballet accompanist at Arts Umbrella and Shadbolt. And then by the end of my time, right before I left for New York, I started doing some subbing for the warm-up classes at Ballet BC. And then, of course, I developed some of the most important relationships in my life, with my bandmates and also my partner and my new friends here. And so, so it was a great decision to come back here. And this is home. This is certainly home for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's a great overview of a lot of parts of your background that some people may not know about if they're just hearing you as a
Yeah.
local jazz piano player.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But I know you said, and then I left a month later. I want to talk about New York because I want to hear about your recent months experience there. But I want to just hop back to some of those places that you toured to because you flew past them, and I want to investigate a little bit more because
Yeah.
I've been to Europe a little bit and I've been to Eastern Canada a little bit, and I'm
Yeah.
just curious. Let's start with Europe. So where did you go
Yeah.
when you were playing there?
We were in the Czech Republic.
Oh wow, nice.
We met up in Paris. So we went to Prague as well. So yeah, the Czech Republic, Slovakia. So those it was towns over there that we were in.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was super awesome. Yeah.
What was the day to day of it like? Like, was this really fast paced and you were going from place to place, or did you have time to hang out?
It was every day. Yeah, we went to a different town.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So being on the train, lots of train time.
Yeah.
Lots of train time. Sleeping in a different place. Not a lot of sleep. You got to get up at 6 a.m. to get to your next spot and play your concert and be on the train and reflect a lot on your life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
What about Eastern Canada? Where'd you go? I haven't been to Newfoundland, but I've been to the other Atlantic provinces.
Yeah.
I've been to the Maritimes.
So we went from Toronto all the way to Prince Edward Island.
Nice.
And
You
it was
drove?
we drove. So we played in various areas. We played Prince Edward Island, so that was in Charlottetown. Halifax. We played in St. Andrews, just this smaller town, which was super fun. That was a super rock and roll night. It was like we played in the local bar. Everything else was closed. Everybody was in that bar, and we just looked at each other. We're like, okay, we're really playing rock and roll tonight. Like, we're really going for it. Like, we don't play rock and roll, but, tried to bring that energy.
Yeah. It's an instrumental group, right? Like this one, yeah.
Yeah, it was violin, piano, bass, and drums.
Nice. And they dug it?
They loved
it. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah.
And then we played in Quebec, I think we were in Rimouski, Montreal. Did we play? We didn't play in Quebec City, but we stopped by. We stayed in a town called Rivière-du-Loup, which was a very cool town, yeah. And then we also did like Northern Ontario a bit. We went to, we went to North Bay. So not like super duper north, but still North Bay.
When you're in Toronto, it feels really far away.
Yeah, that's it. And we played we played in places nearby Toronto. At the end of our tour, we played in Sudbury. We played in, I'm forgetting the town now. It was a town near like Kingston or something. So we did that. And the year before, we did a bit of a Western Canadian tour. We played Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon. Yeah, it was awesome.
You played like clubs or festivals?
We played Yardbird Suite, the Basement in Saskatoon. What's it called in Calgary? Ironwood?
Ironwood Grill.
Ironwood, that's it. And then Frankie's. So yeah, that was awesome. That was great. That was my first touring experience. That Western Canadian tour.
Was it what you were expecting when you were getting hyped for it? When you were getting ready to
go? I guess I didn't know really what to expect. It was awesome. It was a blast. I got to play music with my friends, music that I loved, and I got to see parts of the country that I had never seen before. Tours can go one way or another, but we were treated very well by the people hosting us and the venues. I say tours can go one way or another because, you hear the horror stories of something going wrong. Nothing ever went wrong on any tour that I've ever been on.
Nice.
So, luckily. So, so yeah, I'd say it was an incredibly enjoyable experience. Yeah.
Nice.
I love playing the same music every night and trying to find a new avenue, through the songs for each night. So it's something that I very much enjoy. Yeah.
So you're gonna do your album release for the fall of this year, right?
Yes.
That seems to imply, we're talking about touring. Tour 2024 coming up for your group.
Yeah, I'm thinking like that's now part of where my brain is at. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that I have to consider right now. But one of them is, a year from now, once I complete my program in New York, I need to tour this music. So I need to apply for grant funding for that. And I need to start booking. So ideally, I'm hoping to try to hit those venues in Western Canada and the prairies, because there's incredibly those venues are great. The Yardbird Suite is amazing in Edmonton. The basement is really, really fun to play in. And the people there are really, really nice. And I'd love to share the music with them. So yeah,
I could manifest you playing at Buckingham Palace.
Oh
right now.
yeah. Oh yeah, Buckingham. I've never played there, but I've been there. And
well, who'd you see?
Well, actually, I didn't see anything. I just I know Lisa through a friend. I've worked with her son John, so I've played with John Buck. So I've and then of course Lisa and Jody have a very strong relationship. So when she came over for the Austera Project's debut performance, I met Lisa there as well. So yeah, Buckingham is the best from what I've heard and from what I've seen. And I would certainly love to play at Buckingham. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about having a long lead time is you can think about stuff like this. I know you just said I got to start booking, but you got to start booking once the album is done and once all the materials are ready and stuff. You got to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to start. Yeah. You as you know, we're always hustling. We're as artists, we're either reflecting and then thinking about what our next step is, and then we're acting on those next steps, and then we're seeing those next steps through. So it's a constant process. Yeah.
So how's New York? How'd you end up making that happen this past fall when you arrived? What did it feel like?
Yeah.
How's this been over the last semester?
Yeah. So I applied for a program that seemed really, really interesting to me, called the Performer Composer Program at the New School, and received a scholarship which allowed me to move out there and do the program. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, of course, incredibly grateful. So I moved out there. And let's see, how do I put it into words? Well, first of all, it's been very fruitful. It's been very formative, and it's been very positive. New York is a very intense place. I work really hard. I push myself really hard. And so I've gone out and tried to make relationships and connections, and I've gotten to play with some really great people. So I'm very interested in film scoring as well, so I've been really pushing that front while I'm out there. So I've gotten to collaborate on 2 short films. One is like a documentary, and the other's this short horror film, and I wrote the music for that. And then right before leaving for Vancouver, I was hired to play on a recording session. So the album was led by Tima Voloch, who is good. I met him. He's a good friend of David Blake. David Blake's, right?
Who's in New York.
That's it. So we were playing together, and Tima hired me to play on his album, and Jerome Harris was playing on bass, and Jerome is a legend. That he toured with Sonny Rollins and played with Julius Hemphill. I mean, he's played with so many people and has so many stories to tell, Jack DeJohnette, you name it. So to be able to play with him and hang out with him and hear what he has to say, both on his instrument and just at the table, when we're hanging out, has been life-changing, I would say.
Wow.
I mean, I can't really say it. Like, I'm just incredibly grateful to have been able to play with those musicians, those incredible musicians. We rehearsed twice and then spent a day in Bunker Studios in Brooklyn, which was a beautiful studio. And I had a blast. I had a complete blast. I've been playing sessions with a tenor sax player named Lena Block. She's an incredible tenor sax player who spent like 15 years studying with Lee Konitz and hanging out with him and playing with him, and so I go over to her house and just or like we play a session somewhere and she brings in her compositions, which they're always very intricate and very interesting, and her sense of melodicism is on a whole other level. So I've been able to play with her a lot and talk music and composition with her, and that's been incredible. And then I've also been hanging out with the more sort of free improvised communities, both electronic and acoustic, in New York. So I've got this sort of trio going on with a flautist and a vocalist and electronic artist. We play compositions and improvisations together. Samantha Cochis and Lenny Kreinberg. So we get together and we play often. I was just messaging them like before this because Lenny just got the New Standards book
by Terry Lynn Carrington.
Yeah. So we want to play through some of that.
Nice.
And that's been super fun to play with them and just have fun doing things. Lenny's into like building synthesizers from the ground up.
Wow, is that like what you call a modular synth? Is that what that is? Or is that something else? I don't know. This is not my world.
Not even. It's like starting with what's called a breadboard or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not super... I'm really into digital synths, like plugins. Like I work with Ableton a lot. With scoring and whatnot, you have to. So I know that stuff, but I really don't know anything about building a synthesizer.
No.
So I don't know. But Lenny, is building that sort of stuff, which is super cool. And we have a lot of fun. So those have been my main musical endeavors in New York in regards to collaborations with others. And of course, going to see shows like all the time and playing sessions. But going to hear the music out there is incredible. You can get a monthly subscription to the Jazz Gallery, which costs you $12, I mean American, but $12.50 per month.
Wow.
And you get into a lot of shows for free.
That's awesome.
Or for a much smaller price. Yeah. And that's been the best. Right before coming here, I got to hear Sullivan Fortner's trio. I saw a project by Carolyn Davis, who I didn't... I wasn't super familiar with her music, but man, she is cool. She is so cool. And I'm going to try to catch every show of hers from now on when I'm free. So yeah, it's been incredibly fruitful and I've learned a lot and have grown a lot and met really interesting artists, which I hope to, that those relationships just keep developing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's what you needed?
That's a good question. I don't know if like needed. I'm not quite sure if need is the right term, but it was funny on my birthday, which happens during Jazz Fest. I was waiting to hear back about the new school, and I was writing in my journal. I was like at a show. The show was about to start. It was at Iron Works. It was it was Darius Jones, who I studied with. I was at a show at Jazz Fest at Ironworks, and I was writing in my journal, and I was thinking, I wrote something along the lines of feeling a little bit, maybe it wasn't lost, but I felt like I needed to do something. I needed to grow some more, and I was feeling that I needed to be pushed in certain ways, and perhaps moving to New York is the right way to do that. Of course, that's quite an undertaking, but I thought, this is, there's an opportunity here, and hopefully it works out, and it did work out, and so so maybe I did need it. I don't know.
Well, it's whatever it means to you, right?
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to drop two, not people we know, but like legendary musicians' names, like established musician names that I really hear in you, and I'm sure are big influences to you too, and whatever reactions you have or whatever you think of when I bring up these names. I'm curious because they mean a lot to me as well, but I feel like I hear them in you. And the first most obvious one is Bud Powell.
Right. Yeah. I love Bud Powell.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you say that. It's nice to know that music comes out in my playing.
Totally does. Even in the two tunes that you shared with me from the Night and Day sessions,
great. That's awesome. Thank you. I absolutely love Bud Powell. I've transcribed a lot of Bud Powell. I've listened to a lot of Bud Powell. And we're gonna geek out here a little bit. When I've transcribed Bud Powell, what I've noticed is that, of course, he's playing some highly refined bebop vocabulary, like the real deal, This is some Charlie Parker stuff, of course, because Charlie Parker was a contemporary of his. They played together all the time, for a period of time. And some of his lines I found, perhaps for my hands, because every pianist has different, hands. For me, it was quite challenging sometimes to jump around the piano the way he did, and at the speed at which he did, I guess all I can say is, pure genius, pure genius, pure energy and precision, and just beauty, just sheer beauty. I will gladly listen to Bud Powell at any time of day. Yeah.
Nice. And then this is somebody who I'm not sure where he would rank among your influences, but he recently passed away relatively, and I was lucky enough that I got to hear him a couple times in Vancouver in different situations. Chick Corea.
Yeah. Well, yes, certainly. Yeah. That his playing has definitely influenced me a lot. I guess there's just such, like, the vocabulary that Chick drew from a variety of, of Bud, right?
Powell,
he was very fond of Bud, equally fond of Thelonious Monk. And then, his interest in Bartok's music, and then McCoy Tyner, just the amalgamation of those musical vocabularies just placed in there with his precision and also his curiosity, right? You listen to and you see it in his face when he's playing, just that complete curiosity.
And you see it in yours too.
Yeah.
so people know.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So certainly. And Chick Corea's time feel is so cool, you know. I've definitely loved, you know, the way you know, he plays over that tune Matrix, and, you know, just that time feel, the burning precision of it all. Yeah.
I got so lost in the track on that album, track 1, the steps and what.
Oh my God.
One. Yeah, that's what I think of the most, even more so than Matrix. Yeah, but I know Matrix is like a big thing for Brad Turner. And I remember hearing about it from, like, he told me to listen to that album, I guess, at some point. But I guess he singled out that track
interesting
for me at some point back in the day. And then the third name is, and we're kind of contemporaries here, so that fits into, but somebody who shifted my generation when he dropped the album Invisible Cinema, Aaron Parks.
Yeah.
And everything he's done since.
Yeah. Aaron, you know, okay, so would I say that he's been a huge influence on me? Maybe not. I've actually only really dove into his music within the past few years, I would say. Say when you and I were just starting off, you know, I wasn't actually listening to his music very much. I did listen to that record, but it's only more recently, within the past 2 or 3 years, that I've gotten into his music. And of course, it's incredible and it's beautiful. I got to catch him at the Jazz Gallery not too long ago, and it was just stunning. Just the touch that he has on the instrument, just the sound that he produces, and of course his compositions are very special. So yeah, I would say that perhaps in the earlier years of my development, not so much, but now for sure I very much enjoy listening to. And when I was younger, I enjoyed listening to him. But if I'm honest, I was far too obsessed with Brad Mehldau.
Okay, yeah, there you go, yeah.
But if we're talking about influences, I would certainly say that right now, pianists such as Vijay Iyer and Jason Moran and Craig Taborn and Chris Davis, those are the pianists that I really love, and digging into the music of Andrew Hill and Herbie Nichols, and of course Thelonious Monk, and then going back, you know, I love listening to Jelly Roll Morton. You know, I truly love listening to Jelly Roll Morton and James P. Johnson, and there's a lineage there. And Duke's, you know, I find, of course, we always. Duke was one of the greatest composers of the 20th century, you know, just period.
Of anything, yeah.
Yeah. But as a pianist as well, he was incredibly unique and special, and I've learned so much from listening to Duke Ellington's piano playing.
Yeah.
So those are some influences for sure.
I haven't heard it yet. You're talking about the lineage too, and you mentioned Jason Moran, but he dropped a project recently.
Yes.
I haven't listened to this yet. Yeah, is this cool? The music of James
Reese Europe. That's it.
Yeah.
The Harlem Hellfighters.
Yeah.
I've been. That's actually the only record I've been listening to since it dropped, which was on, I think,
very
New Year's
recently.
Day.
I think it was New Year's Day. Yeah.
So that's all I've been listening to. It's incredible. I highly recommend listening to it. I mean, Jason Moran is one of the greatest artists, you know, right now. I admire him so much, and community builder as well. You know, he does a lot of work for the community.
Nice. Well, this has been phenomenal. I enjoyed all the different parts of this, from like the rhythm sections, the amazing duos that you've been playing with as a pianist, hearing about your different projects, all this tour stuff and dance stuff that I didn't really think about even coming in here, and all the other stuff. So thanks so much for taking the time while you're back here. I wish you all the best your second semester at New York, and thanks again for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, I appreciate it. That was fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you like what you heard, I'm going deeper into the podcasting game this year in 2023. I am co-producing, not hosting, just working on the back end of another show called Pacific Sound Radio, which is also a Vancouver music interview show. In fact, it's the longest running one in the city, deals with all genres, and there's a new episode of Pacific Sound Radio out right now. Find Pacific Sound Radio wherever you get your podcasts. Catch you next time.